How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Sheep No More. Get it.
My name is Jonathan Gillum.
And this is The Experts. This is Jonathan Gillum, and this is The Experts on Facebook Live, Twitter, and YouTube. So, a lot going on with immigration, it seems like, today. Kind of a dry day in the news, dry in the way of the people in Florida finally took a day off and shut up about the AR-15s, I guess, kind of, sort of. I am absolutely sick of that, and that sheriff down there. I was on Breitbart this morning, on Breitbart News, and it's, I don't know, that guy's psychopathic. I talk about him every single day, it seems like, the Sheriff Scott Israel. So we're going to get away from him a little bit today. But let's talk about immigration, what's happening. I'm not an immigration expert. I've worked around illegal aliens in the Bureau and so I can talk something about it, but I couldn't get a hold of, I was going to get a hold of Michael Cutler, but just wasn't able to get in touch with him. So let's go ahead and get started. So, interesting things in the news when it comes to immigration. I'm going to pull a couple of these up, and then I'm going to talk about a couple other things. I want to say tonight that somebody wrote me on Facebook and said that they thought there was too much chatter in the room here. Let me look to see who this was, because I really want to make sure in Facebook. I didn't see it. I'm not seeing it. So, hold on here. See. Let's see here. Let me pull this up. One second. Where was this? Somebody was saying that there was a lot of chatter on... Oh, there it is. Donna Lee saying that you have to do something about these chatters on your video. No one can get a word in to comment on what you're saying. I'm not sure exactly what you're talking about, because on Facebook, you know, I have the same people come on here pretty much every night, and you can say whatever you want whenever you want. So it's not like I'm going to... I monitor what's going on, so I kind of see, you know, what's going. I don't know. I don't know what they mean by the chatter, but you feel free to get your word in edgewise. I mean, you can direct message me, Donna, and tell me what you mean by that, because I'm not seeing it. So, as far as immigration goes, let me pull up these stories so we can go through these. Let's see here. There's two stories in particular, and there it is. So, and all has to do with judges. What I'm starting to notice about immigration is that judges in the United States play a huge part in making or breaking policy when it comes to immigration. Now, today, we had a couple things. The Supreme Court ruled that detained immigrants don't get automatic bond hearings. Now, people, you know, may not know what that exactly is, but let's just put it. Let me just put it to you lightly. You know, I won't get into all the legal stuff. We can have Michael Cutler on here. Come on, that guy can describe anything about the immigration stuff. But basically, once you get arrested, there's going to be a point in time when you're going to have a bond hearing to see if you can pay a bond, and you will be released on your own recognizance. But what they're saying that there was a guy who was held for, Alejandro Rodriguez was held for more than 3 years without any bond hearing. And he was an illegal immigrant who was charged with, he was detained in, let's see here, with misdemeanor possession of drugs and joyriding, and but he fought deportation. He didn't want to be deported, so he was held for 3 years without a bond hearing, so he could bond out. Because what happens typically is when you have a bond hearing, if you're just a normal individual who got in trouble, you're going to come back for your court date. But a lot of the times what happens with the illegal aliens is they disappear, and they're nowhere to be found. So, 5 of the Supreme Court justices decided to, in the majority rule, Alito said that the government's authority was clear, that detention during those proceedings gives immigration officials time to determine an alien's status without ruining the risk of the aliens either absconding or engaging in criminal activity before the final decision can be made, because that's what they'll do. They'll get out and go do all this stuff. And then if they get kicked out, they get kicked out, not really worried about it. So now they're saying that, that they can be held and they may not actually get a bond hearing. Now, why is that important to anything at all? Because I feel that what this is doing is it's putting pressure, not just pressure, it's putting the law back to where it should be, to where the constitutional rights that a citizen has is not going to be the same for an illegal immigrant that comes over. And so what happens is they may think twice before they come over. The same thing as if you go over to a country like Singapore and you do graffiti out in public, you're going to get caned. Or if you chew gum in public, you can get caned. So you're less likely to chew gum or spray paint graffiti, as this one kid found out years ago back in the 80s. I don't know if you remember that, where he got his ass whipped with one of those canes. Getting caned is serious business. You can't roll over or sit down. You're just basically laying on your stomach for 2 weeks. So if we ratchet up the penalties here in this country for immigration, for illegal immigrants who get caught doing bad things, then perhaps that's going to be less likely that they're going to come over here and do bad things or come over at all, because if they get caught now, they're going to be like, I'm not going back over there. I'm not going to play that game. It's a terrible game. And it is. I've seen it. I've seen somebody detained for 18 months basically because she was privy to some information. We knew that she had the information, and she wanted to be a smart aleck about it, and she wanted to tell us, go ahead and arrest me then, because she was illegal, and so she did get arrested, and she thought she was going to go like everybody else and bond out. Well, she didn't, and she sat there for 18 months until she decided, you know what, she's in the wrong, and she decided it would probably be best to start working with us to give us the information that we needed. Worked out very well for everybody. We knew that she had the information because we had her recorded talking about it. But she just felt, and she wasn't guilty of the crime. She was an unwilling participant in moving some stuff. And so all she had to do was tell us the truth, and she probably would have been gone on her recognizance, even though she was illegal, and then she would have played out like everything else, and eventually she would have went home, which she was going to do anyway. She's a prostitute. That's what they do. They come over, they Korean prostitute. They come over, they work for 6 months and make about $250,000. They go home, and all the while, I'm not talking about dirty, drug-ridden people. I'm talking about college girls that you would never suspect will come over to this country and do that and then go back. They're not smuggled. They're not trafficked. Some of them come over here legally, but a lot of times they're smuggled. They're not trafficked. It's not against their will. They're here willingly so they can make a bunch of money and go home. So I'm familiar with how this works. So putting a little bit of pressure on these people it's a good thing. Plus, it doesn't allow these hardened criminals like MS-13 to go out and commit more crimes while they're waiting for a court date that they're never going to show up for. So this is the way that immigration should work. It should work in a way that you are able to control the system, not that the illegal aliens and the criminals can control, and there's a system that they can manipulate. That's not the way it should be. So I give a golf clap to the Supreme Court justices that affirmed that, and whatever brush off to those who didn't. Of course, we know the party lines that it fell, liberal versus conservative. It's a shame that it has to fall that way. I thought judges were supposed to be neutral, but of course they're not. So the other story is that a federal judge rules against challenging to Trump's border wall. Now this, I think, is also an amazing story, because the judge in question is the judge with the Mexican heritage that Trump went after during the election. And this it's unbelievable. These ruling, like, I wrote a book. It was 224 pages. This ruling in this court case is 101 pages. Man, these attorneys can write. I mean, you get in an argument with most people. If you were to record it and play it out, it's probably going to be a couple pages worth of words before you get the argument figured out. This is a 101 page ruling. That's pretty incredible. But anyway, the U.S. District Court Judge Gonzalo Curiel wrote that's the judge that Trump had the problems with. He wrote that both Congress and the executive branch shall share responsibilities in protecting the country from terrorists and contraband illegally entering at the borders. So that means that the wall can be built. Let's see. He went on to say, "Is this? Oh, this is DOJ spokesman." Okay, so look, two big things happened today in immigration. Both concerned judges who have been a thorn in the side of effective immigration policy. So I think this is a big thing, and especially because the judge that that President Trump did not get along with actually did the right thing here. So that's pretty impressive as well. So, this brings me back to, I've always said when it comes to immigration is the same as security when it comes to national security or securing your schools. You got to have good policies, you got to have a good foundation and a good understanding of what the problem is. We don't have a problem of, it's not a fairness problem. Immigration is not a fairness problem. It's not that we should strive to be fair to everyone, to give everybody an equal opportunity just to come in the United States. In fact, it should be the polar opposite. Immigration should not be fair. It should be based on whether or not you can prove to the United States, a burden of proof should be on you if you want to come to this country, to prove to us that you are drug-free, criminal-free, that you have a real reason to be here, and then that should be across-the-board standard for everybody, no matter where you're from, to follow. But that's not what the case has been when it comes to immigration. It's always a talk, I think Gutierrez is a senator from Illinois. He's an idiot. And a lot of these other people that are so concerned about DACA, and I've said my piece with that I do think that there should be a contract with America, and I think we should work it out some way. Otherwise, it's not going to get worked out at all. And but overall, typically what they look at immigration is it fair? And I think that is just the wrong thing. I don't understand fairness in deciding who comes in this country based on national security. They don't go hand in hand at all. So I hope you guys see that. I think these are some important stories. Again, listen, I know I talk about stuff a lot of times that's impassioned on this show, but I do think that these this is something big that we've actually had. If you count all the judges involved in these two decisions, you actually have 6 judges, 5 Supreme Court justices, and 1 federal judge that have come up, and it's as though they realize the importance of securing the borders and holding these different criminal immigrants to standard, so where they can't play our system. I think it's very, very important. So I think what I hope this is going towards is that policy will play a bigger role in deciding how immigration works, who comes in here, who doesn't, rather than impartial judges that, not impartial judges, but judges that are dedicated to their ideology or their political stance. This is a move in the right direction. Does that make sense? Everybody getting what you tracking? Okay, enough on that. This may be a short show because I'm covering these subjects real quick because, I don't have a whole lot to say about immigration, but I think that says it all right there. Let's see here. I don't see any chatter. Not seeing any chatter on here. All right. Somebody says there's also the issue of slowing it to allow assimilation. Explain to me what you mean by that. Slowing the immigration process? That could be as well. We are listening fast. All right, let's see what else we got. Okay. Let's go to the A block. I'm going to break this up a little bit, make it look like we're really doing something here. How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Sheep No More. Get it. All right. Jeff Sessions made an appearance today. He's like a groundhog. He makes an appearance every once in a while. It appears as though winter will be cut short this year because Jeff Sessions saw his shadow. So I guess the sun's going to come out. It's the new thing. Instead of the groundhog, Jeff Sessions will just come out of his hiding over in the DOJ every so often and tell us what the weather's going to be like. So he made an appearance today, and he said that he is going to start an investigation or a probe. Not real sure what the difference is there, but they're going to start a probe into FISA abuse allegations. Now, I'm ecstatic about this, but I mean, it's interesting how we're getting excited over stuff that we are like, yeah, that should be the fact. That's what it is. So, I mean, how many of you don't think or think that there shouldn't be some type of look at a probe or investigation into FISA abuses? So anyway, he comes out, he looks around, he sees his shadow, and he says, we believe, or let's just play what he says. I think they got it right here. No, let's see, I'm going to have to pull it up on here. Because it's really fun to hear Jeff Sessions when he talks about this stuff, because it's as if he just woke up and, or like he's the cleaning guy that doesn't get out much. Let's see here. See if I can pull it up. Stand by. One second here. Let's see if it works. Chevy Chase has been in the news twice and nobody cares. Let's see, where was this? Doop, doop, doop. Again, this is the way Fox News does it. They, there you go. They change this around like every 5-10 minutes. Same stories, they just move them around. All right, here you go. Well, let's hope it plays it. Stand by. I got the little swirly thing going back and forth. Nope, it did not work. Okay. So let's see here. Here, we'll do it this way. We'll do it live.
Yes, it will be investigated.
Taking questions at a Justice Department news conference on the opioid crisis, the Attorney General was pressed on the House Intelligence Committee memos and whether laws were broken.
I might get in trouble for playing Fox News stuff.
And if the evidence is there, hold, and investigate.
Payne aide Carter Page.
Will your department investigate? And if the evidence is there, hold FBI and Justice Department officials in contempt?
We believe the Department of Justice must adhere to the highest standards in the FISA court. I think that's just the appropriate thing. The Inspector General will take that as one of the matters he'll deal with.
After rescheduling, White House Communications Director...
That was my Jeff Sessions. Now he's going to go back into hiding like this. He's like a robot. They're just going to put him away now. That's enough, Mr. Sessions. Go away now. So, as I just close out that. So basically, look, they're going to open up a probe into the FISA abuses, and I think that it's great that they're doing this. I think that whether or not anything comes of it, I don't know, because typically, again, like we've discovered, is that when feds investigate feds or politicians investigate politicians, nothing comes out of it. So Jolene Post says she's out. This is immature. Not sure what she's talking about. What's immature? Just because he isn't out front in the camera every day like Holder was doesn't mean he's not doing something. Well, tell me what he's doing there, Jolene. If you want to call me immature, otherwise you could leave the show and we don't. It's fine, you know. But tell me what Jeff Sessions is doing, Jolene, please. I'm waiting for your response on Facebook because I don't see it. I don't see what Jeff Sessions is doing. I don't see it in the background. I'm not hearing it from people that I talk to in the DOJ. We're not seeing the Clintons hauled in. We're not seeing Comey hauled in. We're not seeing any of the people that were involved from the DOJ being inspected or investigated. So you tell me, Jolene, if I'm being immature, you tell me. What is Jeff Sessions doing? We are waiting, please. We're still waiting. I'm not seeing anything because Jeff Sessions is the wrong man for that job. He's a career politician, 30 years in politics in the federal government, and has basically, if you look at his career path, the same as you look at all these other career politicians, there's nothing there. So tell me, Jolene. We'll stop being immature for a minute. We'll be serious. Tell me exactly what Jeff Sessions has done. I'll wait on you. I'll even give you a phone number to call in if you want. We're waiting. That's what I thought. Jolene will not be joining us anymore for any more shows. I'll tell you that right now. Don't come on this show and call me immature when I try to have a little fun and lighten things up a little bit. Jeff Sessions is a failure. All right? Everybody that works in government in this United States, it's been in this government for more than, I would even say, one term, is a failure. Trey Gowdy's a failure. Paul Ryan's a failure. You can look at almost every single Democrat in Washington, D.C. They're a failure. They grandstand. They're puppets for their ideology. They sit around. They don't do nothing. The Senate works about 2 days a week. That's it. So you want me to sit here, Jolene? You want me to sit here and talk about how great Jeff Sessions is when he was a part of a Senate that worked 2 days a week and has failed the American citizenry before he stepped into the role as Attorney General and recused himself and disappeared? He's worthless, as is the majority of people in Washington, D.C. So anybody who wants to come on this show, first of all, and call me immature, I could be immature. This was not one of those cases. But you want to come on here and take up for a politician, first of all, I'm going to tell you, you're going down the wrong road. These people should not be your heroes. This country is in a world of hurt, and all of them have gotten rich. They're all millionaires. These people have used our taxpayer monies to pay off or to pay for programs so their constituents who make a lot of money could get things so then they contribute back to their campaigns and everybody gets rich and all the more merry. It's been going on forever and ever. So I don't think and I don't understand how anybody could take up for Jeff Sessions. And somebody said she was calling the commenters immature. I'm not sure exactly what the commenters were saying, but if they were talking about Jeff Sessions and making jokes, listen, this is not Harvard. We don't sit around on this show and act like we are the rulers of the country. The people are the rulers of this country, should be anyway, if they took the country back. And on this show, you're allowed to show your opinion and you know, act a little funny if you want and say things. I don't care. As long as you're not, you know, degrading people. Well, listen, Craig says she was talking about the Sessions comments that are against her thoughts as immature. Well, listen, if you can't sit here and take other people's opinions about one of your heroes in Washington, D.C. and back it up with some proof that they're doing something that's worthwhile, then you're on the wrong show. You might as well just go ahead and sign up to work for the GOP establishment or the Democratic establishment, because it just Celine has asked me, who would be a good attorney general? That's a good question. Nobody in Washington, D.C. If we want to make this country great again, we got to get away from Washington, D.C. Who would be a great attorney general? Well, I tell you, there is a judge, Penny. I don't remember her last name, but she is a Supreme Court justice in Buffalo, and a state Supreme Court justice. She's conservative. She is a warrior, and she's on the criminal side, and she does not play games, and she's a friend of a friend. She's about to retire if she didn't already retire. I should have her on here one day to talk about this. Somebody like her should be the attorney general. She does not play games. I think Giuliani would have been a great attorney general. But I have a feeling, I'm just going to say it, I think Giuliani has his fingers in business that can't be brought up, and I think that's why you see Giuliani get to here, and then he goes away. Happened when he was going to run for president. It happened, this past year when they were looking for attorney general and stuff, and I don't know. Jay Sekulow would probably be a good attorney general, but I would hope that Jay Sekulow would not be ruled by the GOP. I'm very afraid of anybody who's been in and around Washington, D.C., although Jay Sekulow doesn't act like he likes a lot of people in Washington, D.C., and so I like that. But I don't know. I'd have to – like everybody was saying Trey Gowdy would be a great attorney general. I don't trust Trey Gowdy as far as I can throw him. And I don't think that he would any of these people that are up there in Washington, D.C., I would hate one day that if I ever run for office and I get up there that I sit back and people say the same thing about me. But because it's a fine line. I've learned a lot over the past year, but especially over a conversation that I had with a staffer recently about Tom Cotton, actually, from Arkansas. And they said that Tom Cotton went to Washington, D.C., and he, instead of playing the game so he could get things done, he went in there and went full bore, and he burned all these bridges at first, and so now he's had a difficult time when you're there. Now, I can't blame him for that because I probably would do the same thing, which is probably why I may or may not make a good senator someday. But the fact is that I've learned a lot about how important this game is. Unfortunately, if you don't want to play the game, everybody would have to get together in these states and whether they're Democrat or Republican, get people elected that are like-minded so they could go up there and say, screw both parties, we're independents now, and everybody work together. That would be pretty incredible. I don't know if that would ever happen. So Billy says you can't trust anybody above the dog catcher. That's absolutely right. But Giuliani, I think, if anybody that I know that could have or that would have worked the DOJ in their favor, it would have been Giuliani. And one thing I always liked about Giuliani is that he let cops do their jobs. They didn't like him because of when he was mayor of the city, they didn't like him because he restricted them in their contracts, but he took the handcuffs off and let them do their job. And I think he does a good job of understanding investigations and how things work. The problem is that in the Napolitano, I don't think he's a good fit for the DOJ. We have to know now. Mark Levin could be. Oh my gosh! Could you imagine Mark Levin as the Attorney General? That'd be something. He does have the credentials to be Attorney General. Just because he's a talk show host doesn't mean he doesn't have the credentials. He does. So William says that Jeff Sessions is a godly man not ruled by the GOP. Look, this is one thing I'm gonna tell everybody. Okay, tell you this story real quick. When I was a brand new ensign in the Navy, and I just got into the SEAL team, I didn't even have my trident yet because I was down in Panama is where this happened. And I remember Janine Pirro, no, not a good fit for that either. You guys got to stop putting these people that you see on TV on a pedestal, because I'm not saying anything bad about any of them. They're great people, but you can't just because you see them on TV doesn't mean that they'd be a good fit for this. It doesn't mean that at all. So anyway, let me get back to the story. So I was in Panama, and I met a chief who was a SEAL, and I thought he was the greatest dude in the world. He was just super cool. He really was, I thought, mentoring me and showing me to do this or that. And one day I was at, I think we were out eating or something like that, and I asked, there was a couple other senior SEALs there, and I said, they said, how are you enjoying it so far down here, doing your junior officer training? I said, this is a good time. I said, Chief so-and-so is a pretty amazing guy. He's helped me out a lot. And one of the guys leans over, he says, I'm going to give you a little hint here, sir. You should be very careful who you choose as a hero, because until you find out who they really are, they may actually be completely worthless. So you got to be very careful with that. And I was like, okay, noted. So I started doing a little digging. I found out he was always around because he had gotten in trouble for doing something, I don't know if it was sexual misconduct or something like that, and was basically a turd in the teams and was on his way out. So that's why he was always around. And yeah, he knew stuff that everybody else knew as far as like in helping out, and mentoring about, your gear and stuff like that. But the reality is he wasn't really as great as I thought he was. The point being, if you don't know these people personally, you don't know. And Jeff Sessions may look like a good, godly man, and he may, appear as somebody to you. I don't know. I don't know Jeff Sessions. So I don't go off of what I see in TV. I certainly don't go off of what politicians, the personas that they make themselves out to look like. And I'll tell you something else. I've done enough security protection work for celebrities. I mean, you guys should tell your children from somebody that knows that these people are not who they appear to be when you see them behind closed doors. Now, I don't give names. I'm not going to say anything about it. But it's almost rarely will they ever measure up to who you think that they are. There are a couple of people that I've worked with that I've been highly impressed with as good people. And but more or less, a lot of the times it's a complete scam on the reality of who they are. So lesson is, oh, you're talking about Jay Sekulow. See, William, you just made me go through this whole thing about yeah, Jay Sekulow does appear. Again, I don't know Jay Sekulow, but I know people who know Jay Sekulow, and they say a lot of good things about him. But again, I don't know him personally, but I will tell you, if I look at what Jay Sekulow does versus what Jeff Sessions or anybody else in politics does, Jay Sekulow gets a lot of stuff done. I'll tell you who else gets a tremendous amount of stuff done are the men and women that work for, I knew I was going to forget it right as I was getting ready to say it. They are always doing the Freedom of Information Act stuff, and they pretty much are the ones who've discovered everything that we need to know about the dossier. Hold on a second. I'll think of their names here in a second. You guys are going to know exactly what I'm talking about. They're always doing the Freedom of Information Acts to get the information. Judicial Watch. Heck, I just take everybody from Judicial Watch and I just put them over in the DOJ. That's what I would do. I tell you who else would be I think would be a great attorney general is McCarthy. Why am I forgetting his name? Sorry, I'm blanking all these names today. I was on a show with him a couple times, forgetting what his name is, but his last name is Andy McCarthy. Yes, thank you very much. Andy McCarthy is the real deal. Andy McCarthy did the case for as a AUSA of the blind sheik. He's done amazing work as an assistant U.S. attorney, and I think that he would probably be my choice. If I had to just sit here and think about people, I would probably choose him because he's grounded. He's right there. He understands exactly how the system works, and he's very effective as an attorney. So that's where that goes. Okay, let's see what else here. All right, let's go to the B block before I close the show. And I promised. Let me see here who it was. I'm sorry, I'm having to go back and look because I get so many of these emails a day. Hold on one second here. Okay, here. How many people out there, by a show of, this is for Annette. How many people out there have concealed weapons carry permits, but you've never, ever gone to a course to learn the reality of carrying concealed, or when to draw your weapon and when not to draw your weapon? I mean, how many people, by a show of either thumbs up or hearts on Twitter, have a concealed carry weapons permit but have never taken a course on carrying? Let me see. I'll wait. Good night, Annie. Okay. I'm not seeing anybody. That means everybody's at classes. All right. So Annette wrote me a question here. Says, I truly enjoy your book and I'm currently passing it along. Thank you. My question is this. I am 65 years old, 65-year-old Nana with a carry license, but I have had no training. Should I be caught in a situation where I would need to draw my firearm? Where do I start? Great question. Well, let's start right here, okay? First thing is, you never draw your weapon unless you're going to use it. That weapon stays holstered until you are in, remember this in your brain, until you see an imminent danger of loss of life or serious bodily injury. It's the same with law enforcement. If you come home and your doors are wide open and you didn't leave them that way, what do you think? There is a real possibility that somebody's in your home. You can draw that weapon. Now, you should go through training on how to draw the weapon, how to hold the weapon, and then how to clear your house. Although if I was you, I would draw the weapon and stay outside, hold your ground, and call 911 and have the police come and clear your house for you. But you see where I'm going. The use of deadly force for law enforcement, to me, was always easy. I didn't draw my weapon to get people intimidated and tell them to move away. I didn't draw my weapon as a show of force. I only drew my weapon when I felt as though there was an imminent danger or possibility of loss of life or serious bodily injury. That's when the weapon would come out. So you have to first get that in your brain when it comes to carrying a concealed weapon. Secondly, you need to go to a gun range. Now, the way I train on a gun range for carrying concealed and up close is that I don't go to a range and automatically just shoot at 25 yards away. I usually pull the target up to about 10 feet, 5 to 10 feet in front of me. Start at 5, you can move it to 10. But that's where I like to work. When it comes to, doing the El Presidente drills that we used to do in the teens, where you got the, it's a long story, but the El Presidente drills where you turn around and have to shoot, whether it's drawing concealed underneath a jacket or just getting your grouping down. We in the military and in law enforcement, a lot of times we put that target 25 yards away, and then we try to work on grouping with a rifle and with a pistol. But I believe in having it right up close to you so that you can, if you don't have steel to shoot, at least you're getting instant feedback because you can see where you're shooting through the sights instead of having to take your eyes off the sight, because you don't want to get in that habit either. So I'm not going to go through a whole thing about how you shoot on a range, but there are certain ways that you practice in carrying concealed. You got to find a way that is comfortable for you to carry all the time, where you get used to it. You got to understand when to draw the weapon. So you want to study the legality of drawing your weapon. You don't shoot in the ground. You don't shoot in the air. You only draw that weapon when you feel a serious possibility that somebody could die or get seriously hurt. And when you're at the range, you want to practice within the distance that you would safely draw and employ that weapon. That's going to be 5 to 25 feet, but most people it's going to be, as you could see, there's a video out today where a mom and a daughter in a convenience store got in a in a the guy came in and robbed them, and they shot at him, and then the mom goes and gets. Then she gets into like a brawl with the guy, and the daughter comes up behind him and shoots him while they're wrestling. It's so dangerous. She could have easily shot and killed her mom. So there's lessons in that as well, but we can look at that in another time. But this is where you start, okay? You start by understanding the law. You start by going to a range and practicing with your weapon. If they allow you to draw, that's fine, but it's best not to start drawing and shooting. You can practice drawing at home by having your weapon unloaded and drawing it, making sure that the trigger is charged so you can pull the trigger. But you want to get in the habit of doing that at home and just dry firing and pulling that weapon out. Dry firing is probably one of the best things you can do. You can put quarters on the end of your weapon and practice pressing the trigger. There's all these fundamentals that you can practice, okay? So the law, you want to practice, you want to understand the legality. You want to practice the basics on a static range and at home when it comes to make sure your weapon's unloaded, dry firing and drawing from your holster. And then the other thing that you want to do is, and I recommend doing this, is if you have any property at all, you don't have to use a real gun for this. You can go to Walmart and get an inexpensive airsoft gun, and you can practice tactics with your airsoft gun. Now, you probably want to take a class, and then you take the class somewhere, and then you come home, and you can set up, ranges and stuff, and you can practice with your airsoft gun. There's no reason to go and spend hundreds of dollars on bullets, and if you've never done any type of tactical training before, you can do a lot of that training with an airsoft gun. But I think it's good to try to get an airsoft gun that is equivalent to yours. That way you could use the same holster if if you can do that. And if you can afford it, go take a class. But even if you take a class, you have to continue to practice. And the best way I've seen is to practice with an airsoft gun. Airsoft guns now, the technology is so close to a real gun that you get the same feel when you draw, you get the same feel when you shoot, and you can carry out the same tactics. Make sure you're wearing eye pro so you don't get popped in the eyeballs if that thing ricochets. So I think that is all I need to say about if you've never carried concealed before and you've got your license and you're carrying now and you've never taken a class, you need to somebody just said classes give you confidence. Absolutely. Confidence when it comes to shooting is very important, but also very important is repetition of the basics. So learn when you should and shouldn't draw your weapon. Basically, you don't break leather. That means you don't pull your weapon out unless there is a possibility that somebody may die or be seriously injured. The threat has to be there before you pull that out. You don't say, you get in an argument with your neighbor, or you're driving down the road and you have a road rage incident and somebody's like running, flipping you off and stuff, and you pull out and show them your gun. No, there's no imminent threat there of loss of life or serious bodily injury. You can always get off and dial in and go to your local police precinct and go there and hang out until they leave, whatever. Or slow down most of the time. Just slow down. They'll go away. But that's not a way. You need to learn when you do need to draw that weapon. And basically, serious bodily injury, loss of life, the potential of those two things. Go to a range. Learn what it feels like to shoot the gun. Learn how you're going to react when you shoot the gun. At home, you can dry fire. Make sure it's unloaded, completely unloaded. You drop the mag, you charge the slide, and get whatever rounds are out of there. You check it, charge it again, recheck it. And remember, you don't charge the slide to get the round out and then drop the mag. You drop the mag first and then charge the slide back. So you can then dry fire. You want to make sure that you're pressing the trigger, not pulling it. You want to make sure that you're keeping the sights aligned, all the basics. You can do all that at home with no ammunition whatsoever. And then when it comes to tactics, room clearing, things like that, or how you react in a situation where, you may actually have to draw your weapon, and that's where the courses come in great. They put stress on you. They build your confidence. You can do that, and then get yourself a cheap airsoft gun, go, set your place up out back, and don't look. You got to make sure that the law says that you can have an airsoft gun, especially if you live in the city. People think, oh, I can't have a gun, but I can have an airsoft gun. That in New York, that's not the case. So then you want to get an airsoft gun and safely, with eye protection, set up some targets where you got to move and shoot and get some cover. Understand the difference between cover and concealment. Concealment hides you. Cover actually will guard you from the rounds coming into. Sometimes people will get behind a wooden door, and think that that's cover. It's really actually concealment, because somebody knows you're there. They can shoot straight through the door. So these are things that you need to understand. There's plenty of stuff online. There's plenty of courses. If you live in Texas or in the South, there's plenty of courses out there. And join a gun range and shoot as often as possible. That's really one of the biggest things, probably. Shoot as often as possible. 5 feet away, 10 feet away, have the target right there. When you shoot, stay on the target. Don't be one of those people who shoots and then looks and shoots and then looks. You don't want to do that. You want to stay on target. And then, when you run out of ammo, you want to get in the habit of putting a new magazine in there. Because what happens if you do get in a shootout? There's been plenty of times shown where a cop will draw their weapon and they'll start shooting. Boom, 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 boom. And they run out of ammo before they even get up to the person. If that's the case, you better get a reload in there real quick. So civilians, it's possible to do the same exact thing. Make sure that your weapon's always loaded. That's about it as far as that goes. I think from the basics, I hope that helps you out. Nana, Annette, I hope that helps you. And let me know what you think. I'm just looking at what you guys are writing. All right. Kind of all over the place today a little bit, but that is more like a news show than I've ever done before. So let's go to the Truth Zone and close it up. Yeah. Remember to share the show. If you're on Facebook, retweet it, which is actually sharing, but you're going to retweet it on Twitter. And I tweeted something out today. I've been retweeting these this list of suggestions. It's actually one huge suggestion that I made to the president on Twitter. I've gotten no response from him. I've gotten plenty of responses, literally hundreds and hundreds of responses from people. So I put it all, condensed it into one picture, and I put that on Facebook right before this show. If you see it, it's also on Twitter. If it's on Instagram as well, share that. Get it out there. People have to understand that if you're going to secure a school, there has to be a foundation, and that foundation lies in a good threat assessment done by you with the assistance of a professional, or in the case of if you don't have the money for a professional, go spend the money on this book right here on Amazon or Barnes & Noble, and this will guide you through how to do a threat assessment on yourself, on your school, your church, your home, your work. You got to start there, folks. You don't start at the Second Amendment. You start there. So I'm sorry I got mad at Jolene, but I don't like being called immature when I'm trying to have a little fun, especially at the expense of a politician, when everything I'm saying is true about politicians. You have to be very careful, folks, who you ask for advice, who you ask for analysis from, who you follow as your hero, who you think somebody is without actually knowing that person. You have to understand that unless you have first-person knowledge, just like in a court of law, it's hearsay or it's gossip. And I don't know how anybody could be offended by the analysis that Jeff Sessions has done nothing. Or the majority of politicians in Washington, D.C., they've done nothing. Save your feeling of offense for when somebody insults the Lord or God or a child or your mom or America. Save your I'm offended. Save it for that. But don't sit here and tell me I'm immature because I said Jeff Sessions isn't doing a good job. I measure the quality of a politician. I know it's hard for them to get a lot of stuff done. I know it. But as I've said, there are very few politicians that actually... Nunez, you want to know that he's a good politician? He put his career on the line. What he did is actually made a difference. He forced a memo to come out that showed the American people what they already knew but needed to hear. That the dossier against Trump was fake. That Mueller is fake. That Comey is fake. Now that's a good politician. Even if nothing happens, he did what I feel is a good job in that circumstance. I'd vote for that guy. And as far as Comey goes, anybody who buys Comey's book after you get through reading it, you should take it, hold it out in front of your face, and slap yourself as hard as you can. I'm Jonathan Gillum. My good buddy Rico is right here next to me as always. He's like a little foot warmer. This is The Experts. And remember, wherever you hear this voice or see this face, the truth has arrived. Don't forget, if you've read Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, if you have a local newspaper, your local news stations, you know a reporter, get this book to them. There needs to be stories done about this book. If you know a superintendent or principal, get this book to them. Let's get this going, folks. We've got to get the word spread. Right now, people should be jumping all over this book so that they can start securing their facilities. It's not just about book sales. It's about getting the book in the hands of people so that they can make this country safer. That's why I wrote it. Let's do it. Make sure you're sharing the show.
Do it. Share this show. And always remember, wherever you see my face, wherever you hear my voice, the truth has arrived.
How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Sheep No More. Get it.
That's all, folks. Woo!